Yes, it's John G. Sutton here. Tales from the Jail. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about when I was starting and the General Secretary of the breakaway trade union called the Prison Force Federation. Yeah. Now the reason that we had to start a union instead of the POA was because the Prison Officers Association was in effect a tool of management, run by management for management. If you were a junior prison officer, as at the time I was in 1975, then you were effectively without representation, because at the first prison I was posted to, Wormwood Scrubs, the chairman of the Prison Officers Association at the Scrubs was a principal officer, and he was in fact the detail principal officer, so he allocated you all your jobs. Now you can't tell me that that is the job for a trade union leader of a trade union. That's management's job. Yeah, you see, managers manage and workers do the work, and as basic jailer, that's what you were doing. And the chairman of the Prison Officers Association, which still calls itself to this day a trade union, was a principal officer. And the head of the trade union was, or had been, a chief officer. The treasurer of the trade union was a number one chief officer. In fact, he was the number one chief officer at Dartmoor of the National Trade Union. And the trade union, the Prison Officers Association, was a member of the Trade Union Congress. Now, I had numerous issues with the working conditions. The staff were working in Victorian jails, putting adult males, 3 adult males, into one cell, 12 foot by 8 foot, that was designed in the reign of Queen Victoria for one man. We, in the 1970s, 1960s onwards, were putting 3 men in there. Not 1, 3, yeah? Bunk beds, a bed at the side, no room. I mean, you can imagine there's no room in there. It's only 12 foot by 8 foot. It's got 3 beds, yeah? No sanitation, no running water, no toilet. You're in there with a bucket, yeah? So when you point this out to the so-called trade union, that these are insanitary conditions and it's completely against their human rights of people to put them in there, and they should not be instructing their members of their trade union to work in such vile conditions. But they were. So anyway, I got it into my head that we had to do something about this, and I was studying law at the time, and I was talking to one of the tutors who was a lawyer, solicitor, and he said, well, look, why don't you start the trade union? You know, you can do this. So I set about doing it, applied to the certification office for a certificate of independence, formed the trade union, recruited hundreds of people joined, from all over the country, and I went all over the country giving talks on this. And indeed, I gave stories to the press. I'll show you this one. It was in the front page of the Daily Star. There you are. That's, I think you can see there. Was it March? Yeah, let me have a look. It was Monday, March 24th, 1980. Jailhouse Rebellion. We're sick of these Victorian dungeons. Yeah, and if you can have a look at that, read it maybe. Pause it and read it if you can do that. See, my name's on the front page of a national newspaper. It says, Mr. John Sutton, the leader of the Prison Force Federation, says, we're sick of these Victorian dungeons and the filthy conditions in which we are required to work. And what were the Prison Officers Association doing about it? Nothing. Did a great deal about trying to stop me, which they didn't. What stopped me was the lies that they told. I mean, I ended up being physically attacked on duty by prison officers, not by inmates. The inmates actually thought we were right. That newspaper, by the way, when it came out, was banned in all the prisons. There weren't inmates who had paid, who subscribed for their newspaper, were not allowed to receive it. Subsequently, my lectures, I went all over the place, and I went to one place in Durham. I went to do a talk at Durham Prison, and they hired a conference, like a room at a hotel, and I was doing a talk there on why we needed independent trade union for the junior staff, for the non-supervisory grade staff, because the supervisory grade staff were pointing us in the direction of cells. I mean, I worked on one landing at Wormwood Scrubs. It was C2 landing, the biggest single prison landing in Europe. It had 200 inmates on one prison landing, 3 to a cell. I think there were something like 80 cells. There might have been 88 cells, something like that. But there were 3 to a cell. They had a couple of Cat A cells as well. But, I mean, the conditions were filthy. They had 2 toilets, and these things. And the whole place, when they used to deliberately block the toilets up, I don't know why they did that. They shoved whole toilet rolls, rammed them down the toilet bowl, so that they blocked in there, so the toilets would spill all over the landing and run across the landing, dripping down like a nightmarish version of Niagara Falls. Disgraceful, disgusting, and of course that we had to work in those conditions. So I started the trade union, the Prison Force Federation, with a view to putting all this right. The POA, the chief officers and the principal officers, they spread rumours about me saying I was being funded by Colonel Gaddafi. That's where I got the money from to start this trade union. And not only that, my mission, according to the Prison Officers Association, was to bring absolute chaos to the British prison system. My actual aim was to bring some kind of humanity to the British prison system. And the principal officers and the chief officers of the Prison Officers Association, they were there to make sure everything stayed the same. The filth, the disgusting abuse, the mistreatment of inmates, and the 3 to a cell slop out, bang up that have been going on since the 1950s. Because there was a big burst in the prison population. The prison population hasn't always been over 100,000. No, it hasn't. In the 1940s, I mean, people were in the military. People generally did not behave in such an unlawful manner to get themselves locked up. There was certainly no drugs in the 1950s. Not that you could go on a street corner and buy. They just weren't those kind of things. People had woodbines, cigarettes, yeah, and a pint of beer down at the pub. I mean, I went in a pub the other day. Seriously, I don't usually go in pubs. I went in a bar. We were away on holiday, on a weekend away in Leicester. I went to see my grandson at the university there, and went in a bar. They didn't have any bitter. No bitter. No, it didn't sell. I couldn't order a pint of bitter. Didn't sell it. They didn't sell mild either. Couldn't get a pint of mild. In fact, I've been in a few pubs over the last 10 years and never seen a pint mild on draft. How strange is that? The world is changing. But anyway, that was me on the front page of the Daily Star. You can look it up, 24th of March 1980. And I was predicting that if they don't do something about this, then the inmates are going to do something about it, and they will rip your prisons to bits. And look what happened. Strangeways riot. They ripped the roof off. Exactly what I was saying. You can't treat people like animals. If you treat people like dogs, you're eventually going to get bitten. And that's what happened at Strangeways. And there you are. I'm not very proud of having predicted that, but they didn't listen, did they? And they eventually, my attempt to form this trade union, despite having hundreds of members all over the country and lecturing all over the country, everywhere I went, there were chief officers waiting, standing outside the venues where I was giving talks, taking people's names. It frightened the staff, because at Liverpool prison, I was giving a talk at Liverpool, and the POA and the governor and all the chief officers called a parade on the morning of the day I was giving a talk in the evening, and they said to everybody, Liverpool prison is a closed shop. It's a prison officers association, trade union only, and if you're not in the trade union, you will not work at HMP Liverpool, Walton Jail. Yeah. And if you attend this meeting tonight that's been run by this, I don't know what they call it, some horrible name, yeah, then you will be expelled from the Prison Officers Association, and you will not be allowed to work at Walton Jail. That's what they told them. That's what that was again. So it killed my meeting at Liverpool. I was on the radio in the BBC Radio Merseyside, yeah. I said, you're supposed to be men, you know, not wilting violets. You get yourself together and come and listen to what I've got to say, because you need a trade union, not a staff association run by the management. Anyway, that's my little tales from the jails today. And buy my book. Go on. Psychic Screw. You know you want to read it. Yeah, hey, and if you're new to this thing, maybe subscribe. It helps. So I'm told. Thank you very much. This is Tales from the Jail.